number 2, and we head to Interlagos for the Brazilian Grand Prix. And as we get into the Brazilian Grand Prix, there's a lot of things to talk about as we headed into it. So first of all, Tom has hit back at Esteban Ocon and has stated that he needs to stop complaining and get on with his job. Now obviously, as we saw, Tom and Ocon have had a back and forth conundrum after Ocon was ditched by Mercedes and Tom eventually retook the spot after he was there last year. Ocon has stated that he hopes Mercedes go into debt and leave Formula 1 for good, whereas Tom has now hit back and said that Ocon needs to shut up, stop whining, show what he can do on the track, and he will have a successful future. If not, it won't be Mercedes that will be leaving, it'll be him that will lose his own seat. Strong words coming in from both parties, and I'm sure we haven't seen the end of this. Secondly, the FIA are now running multiple surveys to get fans' opinions on the sport. As we saw from the Bahrain Grand Prix, ticket prices have been shooting up, which is causing fans to boycott races, and it's not allowing enough money to be brought back in for the sport. Now the FIA are taking actions and are starting things off with surveys, getting fans' opinions, and hopefully we can get the outcome of some of those opinions very, very soon. Ferrari have made a statement of intent for both of their drivers, stating that obviously we saw that the Ferrari drivers are not talking to each other, and they've said that if this continues and Ferrari's relationship continues to boil over, one of their drivers will get sacked in order for a clean relationship. And if things still don't work out, both of them will go. That's exactly what they have said. And then finally, Jaguar are working with Pierre Gasly to sort out the wage issues. Jaguar said this is a complete mistake on the accountant's parts of things, and obviously there must have been a mistake within the contract, so they're going to be looking to sort things out, and Gasly has nothing to worry about. He will receive all the pay that he is duly rightful for, and there'll be nothing wrong with that. But without further ado, let's get into the practice pointers. Let's see who's struggling, let's see who's on top as we head into an interesting race here at Brazil. So who's on top then? Well, McLaren and Mercedes have both made steps forward for Brazil. McLaren really struggled in Bahrain to get the rear of their car working, and Mercedes had issues with balances as well. But both of them are very happy here at Brazil, more likely towards McLaren, as they were set in the fastest times in both of the practice sessions that we had today. Red Bull maintained their strong pace shown in Bahrain, showing that what Red Bull had in Bahrain was not a one-off thing, and it could potentially be a season-long threat for the other competitors to deal with. And then finally, Ferrari are happy with their better performance here than they had in Bahrain. Of course, they were really strong in the end in Bahrain, with Nico Hülkenberg putting on a very competitive result, but they did not believe they had the outright pace, and they are much more happy with the overall balance of their car here in both the long runs and also the short runs. With that being said though, let's get into qualifying and of course the race for the Brazilian Grand Prix. Hey, what's going on guys, it is Fox98 here. Welcome back to a brand new episode of the F1 Journey for you guys today here on the channel. Today we are here for round number 2 at the Brazilian Grand Prix, and as you can see, we're getting things started straight away with qualifying then for this race. If you haven't seen the last episode, be sure to go and check that one out. Obviously, that was done a couple of weeks ago now because I took a break from YouTube to do all my other stuff, obviously. Yeah, if you haven't seen that one, be sure to go and check that one out. Obviously, you probably would have missed it by now, but yeah, anyway, moving on then into qualifying, and we're getting things started with P3 on my first run. I felt quite comfortable actually rounds here. I felt like I had some decent pace, but I still had a lot of work to do. As you can see, my first run, even though it was a decent lap, I still dropped down to P14, but as you can see, increasing our speed now, opening up the DRS, going as close as I possibly can to the start-finish line here, it only brings us up to P11, but I still felt like there was something that I was missing in the car, and I needed to extract absolutely everything if I was to get a good lap in. And as you can see then, on my final run here, we do a much better run now, about half a second up or so on my best lap here. And as we go towards the start-finish line now, it is P3 here in Brazil, a cracking lap there to go just behind George Russell, and also I believe it was Sam who was behind me in the end. But as you can see, it is Sam and then Russell and Pascal Wehrlein just to help out jumps in front of myself. But it's 4th place on the grid for the Brazilian Grand Prix. Really good qualifying session, super happy, and I just had a very clean run with it. Also, there was a couple of comments, I believe, in the last one, which I saw again a while back, and it was, why does George Russell's name not capitalized compared to everyone else's? Because I haven't changed it yet because I'm an idiot. But anyway, we've got 5 red lights here for the Brazilian Grand Prix, and eventually it'll be lights out when it actually gets to the moment, and it's now, which is lights out where we go to start the Brazilian Grand Prix. Good start for Sam off the start-finish line there. George Russell slots in behind us. We now go towards the inside line here on both Russell and Pascal Wehrlein. Double overtake there, up into second place, straight away off the back, but the car, we lose the back into the car halfway through turn 2, nearly going way off the track there, and now we're just carrying on board now. As you can see here, we're not having to defend against the Red Bull. Sam leads the way ahead of myself. Russell goes down the inside of Pascal Wehrlein, and he's going to make it stick. No, not quite. Pascal stays with him, and in fact, they're going to have a little bit of a fight here up the hill now in towards the middle sector here. Pascal will have the inside line here, and this is where he should get in front, and he does so there. So Pascal barges George Russell, but Russell coming back at Pascal here actually. So George really not giving this one up. This is a great scrap between the two Red Bulls here as they now go in towards the second part of the middle sector here, and a bit of contact there between the two Red Bulls. They don't want to be doing that too much, and eventually Pascal Wehrlein just about gets in front of George Russell there, but that was a little bit close. Onto lap 4 of the Grand Prix now, and as you can see, Sam is pulling away nicely up front, but I cannot get away from the two Red Bulls. They are sticking right to my back here. I go wide into turn 1. That's going to compromise my line in towards turn 2, make a mess of 2 in fact actually, and that's put Pascal right onto the back of me here as we now go towards turn 4. As you can see now, Wehrlein goes towards the inside line there. I sort of cover it off very, very cheekily on the defense there, but we now go down the inside and defend nicely against Pascal Wehrlein, go wide on the exit there, but continue on our way. But unfortunately for myself, I was really quick in the middle sector of the lap, but I just couldn't really focus up in this first stint. In fact, really, these soft tyres, as you can see there, go deep into the corner there. These soft tyres during the super soft, sorry, I'm getting confused because the F1 2019, the red stripes and the softs. But yeah, in this stint on the super soft tyres, whilst on heavy fuel, I just couldn't quite get the car where I wanted it to go. The back end was really slidey. I was missing my braking points. And yeah, I just wasn't feeling comfortable in this early stage of the race. But I've just got to settle with what I've got here and just try and do the best I possibly can. And as you can see now, that is the Red Bull there, Pascal Wehrlein, hovering all over the back of myself here. And as you can see, there's a little bit of a train forming up behind me there as Wehrlein goes very close there towards the wall. But I had to give him the space. I didn't realize I was going to go to the inside. I made such a late move to go to the inside line. But I decided that there was no point in losing more time and fighting Pascal Wehrlein. I'm just going to let him through and I'm just going to follow him. That's all I can do. And I'm just going to see what my pace is like here as George Russell now has a little look here. He's got the DRS. He might just go to the inside line here, but it doesn't work out for him as I nearly go into the back of Pascal Wehrlein there. So I broke late in towards turn 4 there, but it didn't quite pay off as George now is still hovering all over the back of me as we move on to lap 6 of the Grand Prix. Pascal Wehrlein about 8 tenths up the road, did about 2 laps or so. He's starting to pull away from myself, but it's not actually pulling away that massively. And the only real concern is Sam, who's really rocketing clear out front. Meanwhile, George Russell there, as you can see, breezes past us in the Red Bull. And like I said, I was talking about George Russell actually. The reason that his name isn't capitalized, basically for some reason it never actually saved it. I've already recorded up to the Chinese Grand Prix, so it definitely won't be changed by China. But by round 4, George's name should have changed and it should have capitalized on it. Basically, when I was typing, I obviously just typed in Russell and didn't put it where it should normally is. Because when you change a driver's name, you have to do it like 4 or 5 times. No, sorry, you've got to do it 3 times. And obviously on one of those occasions, I just didn't capitalize the Russell when you should be capitalizing that specific bit. Bit complicated, it's all part of the modding process. But yeah, anyway, we're coming in now on lap 10 to go on to a set of the soft tyres and to actually do a bit of a strategy change here. The initial strategy was super soft, and then soft tyres to the end of the race. However, I still have 2 sets of soft tyres left, and I just didn't like the super softs. I was on this stint, and it was no fun. I wasn't enjoying it. The car was all over the place. It was sliding. I should have the balance right. So I thought, let's go on to a set of the soft tyres and see if that makes a difference. Obviously, it might not. Who knows? But obviously, the more that I know, then obviously that will help me out. But as you can see here, I'm going to rejoin a little bit of traffic actually. I've got, I believe that's George Russell just in front of me there, as I believe that's it's Lewis Hamilton actually, going down the inside of one of the Jaguar cars there. So nice overtake from Lewis, and we've got the Lamborghini and also one of the Jaguars in front now. As you can see, we're going to try and pass them now. So we go down the inside initially here of the Lamborghini car of, I believe that's Carlos Sainz, and now we're going to make our move down the inside here on the Jaguar car and making nice and easy progress whilst the others are stuck in traffic, e.g. George Russell and eventually Pascal Wehrlein, who is yet to stop we need to try and make these moves. And, well, we're just basically carving our way through the field right now. And we breeze past all three of those cars in a matter of corners. So, really good stuff there. Now we can get onto the back of George Russell, who is still stuck behind one of the Porsches of either Charles Leclerc or Max Verstappen. So if I can get onto the back of them nice and quickly, I should have some fun. But obviously that all depends if I can get to the back of him. Speaking of the fight up front again, look, very close on that line there. But George Russell puts one of the Porsche cars right behind him and he moves up a position. And that's no more traffic for him. He can get onto passing Pascal Wehrlein when the opportunity comes for him, which is going to come up very shortly because Pascal Wehrlein did actually rejoin in front of George Russell. And here he is. Now, this is where the strategy has swapped here. Here comes George Russell now to attack Pascal Wehrlein, who's going towards the outside line now and towards turn 1. There you can see Pascal Wehrlein is doing the same strategy as me. He's on soft tyres, and he's going to do 2 sets of soft, whereas George Russell is on super soft tyres. So that's why George is really quick at the moment. But George now tries to go on the attack here. That's one of the that's Sebastian Vettel in front as well now. As you can see, George Russell goes to the outside line here on Pascal Wehrlein. Round towards the outside he goes, but Pascal's going to have the inside line covered off there. And these two fighting is just going to allow me to slowly but surely catch up to these guys. And Russell now coming back at Pascal once again for a second shot at the German driver, and now towards the outside line. He's got a much better run this time, and this time around you can see George Russell is going to get the position and he can go to the inside line there, take a nice clean line, and that is him through and safely up into what is a net P2 when Vettel obviously pits. But as you can see, Pascal Wehrlein is not done yet though. He's going to come back at George a little bit here. George goes defensive just ever so slightly there. Pascal tries to switch back line. Doesn't work for him though. Pascal has to stay back. But you can see how quickly I am closing up on these two drivers as we look behind us now. And as you can see, this is Reese now on board we're looking at. So my teammate further back, he's having a look at one of the Audi cars. I think it's Lewis Hamilton if I'm right in saying. I could be wrong though, but I am correct because I'm a genius. But as you can see now, Reese now with the DRS here against Lewis Hamilton. Under pressure though, because it's going to be 3 wide now in towards turn 1 because Norris is going to have a little look here. So Lando now goes down the inside. Beautiful double overtake there from Lando Norris, but puts himself up the order, and Reese now basically stays where he was because he hasn't lost, or he hasn't gained. Whereas Lewis Hamilton has lost out in multiple areas as Hamilton now tries to have a go at Reese in towards turn 4. But Reese does very well to position his car there and defend against it. Meanwhile, back at the front, lap 20 of the Grand Prix. It's been a very steady race for the front for the top 3 drivers. George Russell's not exactly pulling away, and Pascal Wehrlein seems to be struggling slightly on this middle stint here. And I'm now catching up to him. I couldn't keep up with the Red Bulls, honestly. They were really, really fast. But as we come towards the end of our stint, that's when I was much better at tyre life on these soft tyres. I was much more consistent than these two up front. So I was kind of, just pacing myself along and having a little bit of a look here as we now have a look at Pascal Wehrlein, lap 20 of the Grand Prix now, in towards the final corner here. You can see that we're closing up to George Russell now, and you can see I managed to just take that corner very, very nicely. And I was only following. I was actually only using DRS to just stick with Pascal Wehrlein, but on lap 20 of the Grand Prix, you would have seen just before we cut to the replay cameras, I got bored, so I went into overtake mode, I went into rich mixture, I put all the tools and all the goodies to my disposal, and we're now going to go towards the inside line here on Pascal Wehrlein and make the move stick. And as you can see, that is us up into P3 in the Grand Prix for a podium place, and now we're up ahead of him. Now we need to catch up to the back of George Russell, who's not that far up the field. He's only about a second, 1.3 clear, I'd say, something about that, about that range. And we can get on with it, 1.1 in fact to be exact there on lap 21. And we can now carry on our way, keep pushing now onto the back of George as we get very close there as Pascal Wehrlein there comes under pressurizes me slightly. Lap 22 of the Grand Prix now, and George is actually just increasing his advantage. So actually, he's still got some pace in the car. And Pascal Wehrlein, me and him were so evenly matched that he's now coming back at me once again. And here he comes now, Pascal Wehrlein. And again, I'm not going to fight this one because we're catching up to George Russell. I don't want us to get compromised trying to, lose that like 5 or 6 seconds and let George Russell just go off into the distance. I don't want that to happen. I basically want us to be as close as we possibly can to the back of George. So by me just being patient, obviously it's going to allow us to stay nearby as Pascal here goes defensive in towards turn 4. And oh, that was really close to losing a bit of my front wing then. I definitely got very nervous then, basically. It's the only way to put that. But now to lap 25 of the Grand Prix here. We've actually stayed that a little bit longer than Pascal and also George Russell. Of course, Russell pitted on the end of lap 21, 22. And we're coming in about 3-4 laps later. This is going to cost us a lot of time in the fight between myself and Russell and Wehrlein. However, obviously, as we saw, I'd rather take the penalty deficit now. Now, what do I mean by penalty deficit? Of course, the Red Bulls are going to probably be about 6 seconds, maybe 7 seconds clear, because I've stayed out so much longer. But as we saw at the end of the stint, I was very, very quick. And obviously, if I can replicate that pace, I can't talk properly. If I can replicate that and also have fresher tyres, you know that's going to put me in a very strong position. So that's what we're going to do right now. And as you can see here, we're going to continue on our way now out of the pits here, and we're in some clean air. Vettel just a little bit behind us, but he's not going to be in DRS range, crucially, which is very, very good for us. We won't have to fight him later on, but it's about 5 seconds, the gap between myself and Pascal Wehrlein. And we're going to continue and try and press that down. Lap 31 of the Grand Prix now, and again, don't have the pace to beat the Red Bulls at the moment. However, I've got the pace to sort of match them. And as I go very wide there on the exit at turn 4, we're still trying to hunt down the likes of Pascal and also George Russell. And you can see how close that they are starting to get. I was really just trying to push very hard. And at this stage of the race, I was just settled down. I was ready to accept P4 because, of course, I just didn't quite have as much straight line speed as the two Red Bulls. I had a lot of downforce, but I just didn't quite have the straight line speed to beat them today. As we now go towards the final corner here on lap 31 to start lap 32, George Russell has been overtaken by Pascal Wehrlein there, which is a bit of a shame. So some way, Pascal's caught up to the back of Russell. And in fact, I've now gone past Russell. That's George Russell there, look. George Russell is out of the Brazilian Grand Prix. That is a massive, massive disappointment for the British driver. He was in P2, comfortably in P2 as well. The gap between myself and Wehrlein is halved as well now. It's just 2.1 seconds between myself and him. But George there with a horrible DNF. That is so massive for this Grand Prix because that puts us on the podium. And well, that's really, really big. I was not expecting George Russell to go out, and with Pascal now just 2.8 clear with 5 laps to go, this is massive for us in this Grand Prix. And now we can try and attack Pascal and Wehrlein, but unfortunately it just wasn't enough, I'm afraid. I did have a go at Pascal, tried to see if I could get onto the back of him, but as you can see via the gap, I did get into DRS range once on Pascal Wehrlein, but unfortunately I just didn't have the fuel, I just didn't have the ERS, and I just felt, I'll try and overtake him. I didn't get the job done, but anyway, it is what it is. Sam has come across the line nonetheless, though, to win the Brazilian Grand Prix. Pascal Wehrlein will take second place, but we take our first podium of the season so far, and I am extremely happy with that. It is third place for us here today, and I definitely felt like we outperformed the car. It just wasn't as quick as it potentially was. As you can see, massive screen freeze there as we finish that. But you can see it's my Sam ahead of Pascal Wehrlein, myself, Vettel, Norris, Rees, Verstappen, Hulkenberg, Leclerc, Rosberg rounding out the top 10, and obviously George Russell failed to finish. But without being said, obviously, let's get straight into the Drivers and Constructors Championship and see how this race has twisted both of those championships after round 2 here in Brazil. So taking a look at the Drivers' Championship then after this epic round here in Brazil, Pascal Wehrlein still leads the World Championship on 43 points. It's been a commanding start for the German, and hopefully he could try and continue that one onwards into the future of the season. Sam picks up his first race win of the season, and with that, his first point of the season on 25 points, and he leapfrogs myself due to the fact, obviously, that Sam has scored a race win, whereas mine has been a P3 and also a P5. Rees is on 23 points, just a few points behind me, as well with Nico Hulkenberg, who's on 22 points. So the four of us very much close in contention. Sebastian Vettel is on 18 points after 2 rounds, ahead of Charles Leclerc on 14 points, doing a great job for Porsche. Lando Norris is on 12 points for McLaren. He definitely needs to step it up very, very soon. Lewis Hamilton on 8 points for Audi. And then it is Max Verstappen, who is on 7 points for Porsche. And then going into the Constructors' Championship then, so it is Mercedes-Benz now. We lead the Constructors' Championship on 48 points, ahead of Red Bull, who are just a point behind on 47. McLaren shoot at the table with 37 points, making a name for themselves ahead of Audi on 26 points, Ferrari on 23, Porsche on 21, and then Renault, Jaguar, BMW and Lamborghini are still yet to get off the mark in this series. But without further ado, let's get into the proposed race notebook. Let's see what people have had to say, and then we will leave it there. So then, having a look at the post-race notebook after this Brazilian Grand Prix, first of all, McLaren are delighted to be back where they belong. It's been such a long time since McLaren have even stood on the podium, let alone on the top step of it, and they're really happy to finally be back up there. And they are going to be celebrating this one quite a while before obviously then they have to go off into the next race. Tom is extremely happy to have finished in P3, saying it was the best that he could do in his Mercedes. Tom obviously had a great fight with both of the Red Bull cars, and Tom stated after the Grand Prix that both the Red Bulls were much quicker than him today, and he just drove his absolute heart out and was really happy to end up on the podium, albeit thanks to George Russell having a problem come the end of the race towards that. Finally, Pascal Wehrlein has admitted he needs to be more aggressive when it comes to his fights against Tom. As we saw, Pascal Wehrlein and Tom had a couple of battles here at the Brazilian Grand Prix, and Pascal believes that he does now need to become more aggressive if he is going to fight heavily against Tom and win out in every single circumstance, as he believes Tom always gets his elbows out, and he believes that he needs to do the same thing if he's going to continue to fight alongside him, and of course potentially when Reese gets involved as well at the front. But that's everything for the Brazilian Grand Prix. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed it, and we will see you guys for the next round, which is the Chinese Grand Prix. But until then, we will see you next time. Take care all. Peace.